6,000 Napa Auto Parts stores and over 17,000 Napa Auto Care centers. The Napa Network has everything you need to get up and go.
Looking for your next job? Express can help. Express Employment Professionals has put more than 10 million people to work in the last 40 years in all types of industries. With competitive pay and no fee to help you find a job, what are you waiting for? Visit expresspros.com today.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
As the NFL heads into its second week of training camp, the league's diversity numbers have made slight improvement. There are still only 3 black head coaches among the NFL's 32 teams, but the league has reached a milestone with 5 black team presidents and 6 black general managers. Both numbers are season highs for the NFL. Baltimore, Las Vegas, Denver, Chicago, and Washington will enter the 2023 season with a black team president. In Las Vegas, Sandra Douglas Morgan is the first black woman to run a team. Teams with a black general manager include Cleveland, Tennessee, Atlanta, Detroit, and Washington. The Dodgers were shut out yesterday by the Cincinnati Reds. The Dodgers are 2-5 in their last 7 games. The Dodgers begin a 3-game series tonight at home against Oakland. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is dedicated to empowering our communities by providing progressive talk radio for our audience. We strive to be an intersectional voice for the voiceless. As a black-owned and operated station, we are committed to highlighting diverse perspectives and creating safe spaces for meaningful dialogue. We believe that everyone has something unique to bring to these political, economic, social, and cultural conversations, and we don't shy away from the hard conversations about current events. We endeavor to be a beacon of hope and understanding, while boldly challenging listeners to think more deeply about difficult topics that impact us all. With this in mind, our mission statement at KBLA Talk 1580 is simple: to create an inclusive platform that promotes civil discourse through honest dialogue and encourages personal growth among our listeners, so they can become the active agents of change. Our vision is to establish ourselves as the premier radio network with relevant programming across the beloved community, connecting people through shared experiences and collective power for lasting impact beyond these challenging times.
My people. My people. The foundation of the United States rests on the sweat of my people. Every enemy of the USA has had to face my people on the front
line. People, my people are dying, and we see it all the time. Don't know where our future would be if he's not here. How do we stay strong? Only we can save us from what? Think about change. Show our people love. Hold your head up. My people don't take it back. My people rise. My people rise. My people won't be fighting. We'll march side by side. We're doing all right. My people cry. My people ride.
I'm Tavis, Smiley, and I'm glad to have you with us in this hour. In case you've just tuned in, we are in the final hour of this 3-hour program, and today, a bit of history being made around here. Today is our first day into national syndication. And we, once again, want to shout out WBOK, 1230 a.m. in New Orleans, being the first station to carry Tavis Smiley across the nation. Other stations, including Detroit, coming online later this week. And then after Labor Day, a number of stations onboarding Tavis Smiley. But we are grateful. We are humbled. We are delighted to be into national syndication. And just thrilled that the first station to carry this program is WBOK, 1230 a.m. in New Orleans. And just thrilled at the opportunities that are in front of us in the months and years to come as we try to, across America, advance an agenda that is in the best interest and not antithetical to the best interest of our people. At our best, this program is about challenging folk to re-examine their assumptions. At our best, we're trying to help you expand your inventory of ideas, and we're just grateful once again that today is the first day of national syndication for this program, and glad to have you tuned in. In our final hour, two conversations on the B side of this hour, conversation with our resident physician, Dr. Robert Drummond, about a new report which reveals that black folk are more susceptible to heat stress-related deaths than any other fellow citizen amidst these excessive heat warnings and advisories. We'll talk about that on the B side of this final hour. We start this hour, though, with this. America is in the midst of a dangerous trend for election disinformation as we open the 2024 presidential election season. We will talk in this hour with the CEO of Vote.org, Andrea Hailey, about the crucial role tech platforms play in shaping our political discourse and the outsized impact they may have this time around on the integrity of our democratic electoral process. Andrea, good to have you on the program. How are you today?
I'm wonderful. I'm happy to be here. So thank you for having me on.
Good to have you on. Let me start with this. A broad question. Will narrow it as we move through this conversation. How concerned are you, as I put it, about the outsized role that these tech platforms may play in the upcoming election? I ask that against the backdrop of what we all know, that Elon Musk recently changed the name of Twitter to X. But he is but one example. X is but one example of these platforms that have some huge sway in the way that political misinformation, disinformation is advanced on the internet. How concerned are you, broadly speaking, at the outset of this presidential season about the role that these online platforms will play this time around?
I'm very concerned. You know, all these platforms are touching millions of Americans all across the nation and have become a way that we receive our news and information. And I think that as we near the presidential, with every month that goes by, we'll start to see stronger and stronger use of disinformation campaigns, particularly targeting communities of color and particularly targeting younger people. And so I am concerned and want to make sure that everyone has the information that they need to participate in elections and that it's accurate information.
Talk to me in greater detail about the targets of this disinformation. You mentioned a couple a moment ago. Again, not naive in raising this issue, but why are certain communities targeted by this mis and disinformation?
In my mind, you know, it's the changing of tactics, right? This is still voter suppression, where you used to have voter suppression in person at polling locations. Now we have a form of digital voter suppression that occurs before someone ever thinks of casting their ballot. And that can take shape in many different ways. It could be election disinformation, or making people feel that systems are already stacked against them, or, you know, we saw it recently with the big lie saying that the election was fraudulent, or things like that. And then you get to basically you're getting to people's minds before you even get to their ballot. The other thing that we've definitely seen is, messages telling younger people that elections just don't matter. And in some cases, in Flint, Michigan, we even saw messages that went out that would tell people things like, you can vote after election day, or things like that, trying to, give people literally the wrong information about where and how they can access the ballot. So we have concerns as we go into the election that, that people will be targeted, and that in particular, it's that digital voter suppression can actually get people to take their own voice out of the process. Less known, blocking access once you're at the ballot box.
Yep. Just getting started in this conversation about digital voter suppression and other types of voter suppression, but specifically digital, as we take a look at how these social media platforms are going to have a huge influence on the presidential cycle as we open the presidential election season. Andrea Hailey is the CEO of Vote.org. More with her when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Interrogating and unpacking. That's what we do around here. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
I'm James Alexander, a proud member of AARP. 1967, I was 17. That spring, my friends, the Barcades, and I made Soul Finger. It was a hit. Number 3 on the charts. That summer, we became the great Otis Redding's band. First gig, the famed Apollo. That fall, we toured. That winter found me in a morgue identifying the bodies of my bandmates and Otis Redding. My music and their memories bring me joy. The Barcades forever.
What would you call a joy that is as solemn as it is sweet and knows no bounds? A joy that's beautifully rooted in soul and resilience. This is Black Joy, a joy that reflects pride and honor despite every challenge. AARP believes the power of Black joy is limitless, and we celebrate this joy supreme. Join us in celebrating Black joy at aarp.org/blackcommunity.
Have you heard about Lendistry? Lendistry is a national Black-led small business lender that is headquartered right here in LA. Once you've started your business, Lendistry provides flexible financing options starting at $50,000 to help you access the affordable capital needed to grow. Whether financing is needed to increase working capital, acquire a business, purchase inventory and equipment, or refinance debt, Lendistry has a solution for you. Lending products range from traditional business term loans and non-revolving lines of credit to SBA 7A loans and commercial real estate financing. Lendistry's pre-application process is simple and does not impact your credit score. Visit lendistry.com/KBLA to learn more and to get started with an application right from the website.
At Charmin, we heard you shouldn't talk about going to the bathroom in public, so we decided to sing about it.
Roll Charmin ultra strong when you drop in the beat. It cleans with way less effort on your seat. Yeah, roll it, drop it. Yeah, roll it, drop it. Okay. Charmin flows extra strong from the road. Your butt hella clean while you're sitting on the bowl. Yeah, it's all you need for that bathroom groove. Get you in and out without nothing to prove.
Charmin Ultra Strong cleans better so you can use less. Enjoy the go with Charmin.
Reggie was a nurse for 16 years.
I had become very burnt out. I wasn't making good money.
Then it happened.
There was an ad for My Computer Career, and it just spoke to me.
My Computer Career was the best decision he ever made.
I could study anywhere from my laptop, and I was working in the first couple weeks of me being in class.
Reggie hit a home run.
The field is teeming with jobs.
Become an IT pro in just months with zero experience at mycomputercareer.edu.
The school is amazing.
It's not rocket science. It's mycomputercareer.edu. This is one student's experience. Individual results vary.
Made fresh daily in Leimert Park, Los Angeles, California. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
You're listening to Andrea Hailey, the CEO of Vote.org on Tavis Smiley, talking about this dangerous trend that we are in for election disinformation as we open season on this 2024 presidential election cycle. Andrea, to that point a moment ago of this trend, dangerous trend as I put it, that we are in. Tell me about the trend toward mis and disinformation in this country.
Well, we really saw misinformation growth in 2020 ahead of the election cycle. And of course, we saw it afterwards, and after the Georgia special election during Jan 6th. And we saw it continue through, casting doubt on our election systems through the big lie, claiming that the election was, fraudulent in some way, shape, or form. And now we're seeing it start to ramp up ahead of the next presidential election. What's concerning here is that at the same time misinformation and disinformation campaigns are going to ramp up, we've seen platforms like Meta lay off their election disinformation teams. And that is, what has our attention at Vote.org, because you show me where your budgets are and you're showing me your priorities. And so we're hopeful that Meta will take seriously the disinformation campaigns that have been run in the past, and that they will, allocate budgets and people and resources to making sure that they're clamping down on disinformation on their platform.
How do they justify, to your point about budgets, I thought about Dr. King's edict that budgets are moral documents. King was right about that budgets are moral documents. Show me your budget, and to your point, I see your priorities. I see what matters to you. But how do these these companies like Meta justify in a moment like this, when we see the rise of misinformation, we see the rise of disinformation? How do they justify cutting back those persons inside their companies whose job it is to sort of catch this stuff to the extent they can and weed it out?
That is an excellent question, and one that I ask every day. And I try to tell people that inaction on something is also taking an action. And, you know, setting these budgets at this point, this early, letting go of these teams early before a presidential election. To me, I don't want to hear later, oh, we just couldn't stop disinformation on the, you know, platform, because it's obvious that there are things and safeguards that can be put in place. What we've most recently seen, and what we're also excited about, you know, we see the growth of Threads. They have 100 million new users or something. It's the fastest growing social media platform that exists in the country. That's really exciting. We congratulate them on that. But we at Vote.org have sent an open letter saying that we want clarification on their policies on how they're going to handle disinformation on their platform. They recently responded that they'll do the same thing as they do at Facebook. You know, but what we're looking for is, you know, a proactive plan to handle disinformation ahead of the presidential election and make sure people are receiving the information that they really truly need, and that information is valid ahead of these elections.
In some ways, this is inside baseball, but you started your career on Capitol Hill, so you understand the importance of these kinds of questions. I'm wondering whether or not, since we don't pay attention to this stuff as everyday people, there have been policy shifts that we should be concerned about that may impede the transparency that we want in this next election cycle on these social media platforms.
Absolutely. You know, we're concerned. YouTube has changed their policies, saying that they were taking down incorrect information about the presidential election and the former president's allegations that the election was fraudulent and all of that. They now have reversed those policies, and they're not taking down, you know, Jan 6 related conspiracy theory content. So that's a concern. We haven't seen a proactive policy at Threads. We've seen Twitter change their policies and also lay off election disinformation employees whose job it is to monitor content and tag it when it's disinformation. And, you know, we've seen Meta, lay off people ahead of this election. So those are sort of the things that have our attention. On the positive side of things, we've also seen, companies like Nextdoor work really hard to slow down misinformation on their platform. They'll even do things when they see rapid fire conversation that has disinformation included in it. They literally slow down the conversation. They find when people cool off for a minute, they tend to share those things less. We've also seen platforms like WhatsApp help create a voter resource bot that gives people election information, tells them where their polling location is, what the rules and laws are in their state, things like that. So there's some positive movement we've seen too, but on the whole, we're very, very concerned at Vote.org about what election information will look like ahead of this election. So we really are recommending that people double check what they're seeing, double check the videos they're watching. No one is out here really regulating this content. We're going to have to, make sure that we're responsible for our friends and our families. Like, go to vote.org. We'll provide the information for all 50 states on how you can register, when early voting starts, when you can mail in your absentee ballots. All of that kind of information sits right there on our platform, and we'll make sure that it's, accurate. And in the meantime, we should all pay very close attention to what these tech platforms are doing and continue to demand that they place budgets behind making sure the content on their platforms is valid and authentic.
That's the voice of Andrea Hailey, the CEO of Vote.org. We're in a conversation with her now here on Tavis Smiley, talking about the ways in which the presidential election of 2024 is going to be impacted by the outsized influence of these social media platforms. The media, we've been talking about the social media, Andrea. I want to talk now about the mainstream media just for a second here. The mainstream media, as you know, this is my assessment, is too often caught up in covering the horse race. We can't get to the real issues because we want to just spend all of our time covering the horse race. And to that end, when you're covering the horse race, you end up covering things like the stuff back in the day that Donald Trump was tweeting out on Twitter. Now he has his own platform, Truth Social. But the point is that the more politicians rely on these social media platforms to get their message out, the more we have to be, I think, diligent about fact checking the stuff that they put out on these social media platforms while we're covering the horse race, which leads me to ask your assessment, not just of social media, but of the mainstream media in covering the stuff that first appears in social media. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense. You know, everybody's in a race for eyeballs these days. So, and everybody's in a race to make sure that they're getting information out as fast as possible. And I would say that, you know, the job of journalists in our mainstream media is to make sure that they are, number one, providing the public with accurate information, which means that you can't just take the first thing that's been tweeted and then, you know, rebroadcast that out. And also really watching who we give earned media to, meaning that there's just billions of dollars then that basically in free airtime that we're giving to whoever is the most bombastic and saying the wildest things online, which probably isn't healthy for our national discourse overall. I think that one of the things that I would love to see ultimately, everything from journalism to, you know, down to the average person is, you know, most of the things that affect our daily lives happen at the local level. Most of it happens at your city council, your mayor's offices, your state legislatures, your governor's office, maybe your secretary of state who oversees elections. And we spend so much time on the presidential and, again, wild things that people may tweet or say, and then bringing that into the mainstream media, but not enough on the things that are really going to help individuals in their day-to-day lives and what, you know, help people to improve what's happening in their neighborhood, on the, you know, on their street, in their city, in their community. And so I think I'm hoping that mainstream media really takes the time to connect the dots with people as we do get a lot of, you know, more information or attention going into the presidential election. Let's connect the dots back to the issues that are affecting everyday Americans and that are affecting our democracy, and then also point out where decisions really get made. Does the president decide where, you know, who fixes the potholes in your neighborhood? No. So how do we take the national discourse and make it local?
Yeah, I'd say don't hold your breath on that, Andrea. Don't hold your breath on that. Since you mentioned earned media, let me come to this because it seems to me that my profession, the media profession, is repeating the same mistake all over again. As somebody once said, it's deja vu all over again. The last time around, we saw that Donald Trump was just given all kinds of free media. People were bending over backwards to accommodate any conversation with Donald Trump. As I've said many times on this program, Donald Trump could call it on his cell phone to meet the press, and Chuck Todd would put him on the air. And not just Chuck, not to bash him, others would do the same thing. Everybody bending over backwards to get Donald Trump on for ratings, for clickbait, et cetera, et cetera. Poor Bernie Sanders couldn't get anywhere near the attention that Donald Trump received in that race. Now, here we are headed toward the 2024 presidential season, and we see the same thing happening again. We've already seen CNN and Fox News give Donald Trump just carte blanche to come on for 60, 90 minutes and just sort of hold forth. And so my sense is that we're going to see the same thing this time that we saw the last time, which is that people bend over backwards to give Donald Trump free airtime, no matter what we have to say about him. And I know your organization is nonpartisan. I'm just making the point, since you talk about earned media, since we're talking about free media, that there are ways in which the mainstream media move that don't make me comfortable.
That's absolutely right. And who we platform really, really in this country really does matter. Whose voice people get to hear day in and day out really does matter. It can change the energy, the tone, the mood of a nation. And I think that the current system encourages, on any side of the aisle, extremism, because if you have to say the most extreme things to gain attention, and then that attention picks up momentum of its own, then you're really, at the end of the day, it's destructive to the very fabric of our democracy as we become increasingly polarized over hearing increasingly polarized messages day in and day out. But of course, like you said, this is done because people pay attention. The more extreme it is, the wilder it is, the more eyeballs it gets, the more clicks it gets, the more attention. So it's sort of like a short-term sugar rush, but one that can be destructive to a nation. And so we're really going to have to think about, how we mindfully platform people, and who do we really want to platform as a leader? Who do we really want to repeat, and what kind of tone are we setting throughout the entire nation? And it's a big question, and because so much has changed so fast, whether it's tech platforms or traditional media platforms or the intersection of the two, we're really in a shifting moment in time, in our nation. And I will say, we've dealt with this before, though. There was a day where radio itself was the new medium, and that caused change in our political body, and then we adjusted, and then TV, and then after that, social media comes along. So we're in a period of adjustment, but we are deciding who we want to be, who we want to platform, and what tone we want to carry forth, as a country right now. And the current system really does encourage extremism, and let's hope that maybe we all start tuning in to media sources that are more aligned with giving true, accurate information.
Yep. Just a few minutes left in this conversation with Andrea Hailey, the CEO of Vote.org. We've been talking for the larger part of this conversation about the ways in which social media platforms in this country are spreading misinformation, or certainly allowing misinformation and disinformation to be spread over their platforms. But that's internal. That's intra-America. Let me go outside, because as you recall, the last time around, the big story was outside interference, outside influence into this presidential race on these same social media platforms. Did we learn anything from the last time around about Russia, or anybody else for that matter, trying to influence elections on social media from outside this country?
Absolutely. I mean, there is no doubt that there are foreign actors that are attempting to make Americans think in a specific way, or affect elections in a specific way in this country. And certainly, Russia, China, we've seen this before. We definitely saw it in 2020. We will see it again, and this is where those election information and content teams at the platforms become so important. It's where it becomes important that they hire up people instead of laying off people ahead of an election, because there are lessons that have been learned about how information is disseminated, as often, depending on which platform you're talking about. But they've found that a few accounts can sometimes make a video go viral very quickly. But then finding out that those accounts are fake accounts, are coming from outside, the United States in an effort to sway an election, you can shut those down, and then pretty quickly shut the inaccurate misinformation down. But it becomes, so important, because we all are now choosing who we're following and what content we're following, and in a way we're in our own silos. And so through that, foreign actors are able to kind of slice and dice up our population and feed different parts of the population specific messages that, in the 2020 election, we saw people outside of the country feeding Blue Lives Matter and Black Lives Matter messages, the same sources, trying to manipulate different people, against each other. We saw people sending out information to young people, a lot of, information to young people saying your vote doesn't matter and just drop out of the system and all of that sort of stuff. So yes, we know what we're up against, but it is up to these companies to really guard the American public and make sure that foreign actors are not.
It is indeed. All we can say is voter beware, voter beware. We're in a dangerous trend for disinformation on our social media platforms, and they have such a huge and outsized influence on the way we see issues and the way we vote. And hence this conversation with Andrea Hailey, the CEO of Vote.org, the nation's largest nonpartisan digital voter engagement organization. Thank you for your work and witness. Good to have you on the program. All the best to you, Andrea.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All the best to you.
Thanks for your time. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
For all the freedom-loving folk This is Tavis Smiley.
I feel like freedom.
What does access mean?
Access means owning a home.
Access means growing my business.
Access means building generational wealth.
No matter your goals, U.S. Bank Access Commitment Programs and initiatives provide the tools and resources to help you reach them. Access your financial goals at usbank.com/access. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Hey, life doesn't stop when cancer starts. After diagnosis, treatment is vital. But for some, just getting there, to appointments, chemo, or radiation, is a major challenge. You can change that. Volunteer to give rides with the American Cancer Society Road to Recovery program. Driving for a few hours of your day can make a life-saving difference for someone with cancer. Visit cancer.org/drive to learn more.
We thank you for sharing a part of your Monday with us here on the Black Information Network. I'm Mike Moore. Now, here's the latest. The property manager of Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate made his first appearance in a Miami courtroom today. Carlos de Oliveira was indicted by a grand jury Thursday on charges including conspiracy to obstruct justice and making false statements to the FBI. He didn't enter a formal plea during the hearing and will be arraigned on August 10th in Fort Pierce. African-American basketball star LeBron James is sharing an update on his oldest son after the 18-year-old suffered cardiac arrest last week. An Instagram video posted Saturday shows Bronny James playing piano. His father wrote in the video's caption, "Grand Rising, God is great." James was discharged from a Los Angeles area hospital. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network, NBINnews.com.
A hit-and-run accident reported now in East LA on the 5 northbound at Indiana Street. A couple of vehicles there, one still blocking the fast lane. Traffic heavy on that 5 northbound drive coming away from Gage Avenue. South is slowing too as you come away from the 710 down toward the 605.
When your ride fires on all cylinders, so do you. That's why Napa is on a mission to keep you in motion. With nearly 6,000 Napa Auto Parts stores and over 17,000 Napa Auto Care Centers, the Napa Network has everything you need to get up and go.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
As the NFL heads into its second week of training camp, the league's diversity numbers have made slight improvement. There are still only 3 black head coaches among the NFL's 32 teams, but the league has reached a milestone with 5 black team presidents and 6 black general managers. Both numbers are season highs for the NFL. Baltimore, Las Vegas, Denver, Chicago, and Washington will enter the 2023 season with a black team president. In Las Vegas, Sandra Douglas Morgan is the first black woman to run a team. Teams with a black general manager include Cleveland, Tennessee, Atlanta, Detroit, and Washington. The Dodgers were shut out yesterday by the Cincinnati Reds. The Dodgers are 2-5 in their last 7 games. The Dodgers begin a 3-game series tonight at home against Oakland. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Dominique DePrima for KBLA Talk 1580. Are you worried about your credit score? Well, look, you can rebuild it. There are lots of factors that go into determining your credit score, but one of the most effective ways to improve your score is to consistently pay your bills on time, over time. If you're forgetful about payments like me, try automating your bill payments. That way all your creditors get paid on time and you'll have freed yourself of trying to remember. Whatever your financial goals, U.S. Bank Access Commitment Initiatives can help support you in reaching them. Access your financial goals at usbank.com/access. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
You know that Big Bargain detergent jug is 85% water, right?
85% water? I thought I was getting a better deal because it's so big.
If you want a better clean, Tide Pods are only 12% water. The rest is pure, concentrated cleaning ingredients.
Ooh, pass me the intercom thingy.
Attention shoppers. If you want a real deal, try Tide Pods.
Don't pay for water. Pay for clean. If it's got to be clean, it's got to be Tide Pods.
Water content based on the leading bargain liquid detergent.
If this were a Reese's TV ad, you'd be staring at a Reese's peanut butter cup. And sure, my voice is peanut buttery smooth, but still, you need to see the peanut butter cups, right? No? I can really just say Reese's and you'll go get some? Okay, Reese's. 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 Really working, actually. Reese's. Reese's. I'm on to something. Reese's. Reese's. Reese's.
With no fees or minimums and no overdraft fees, banking with Capital One is the easiest decision in the history of decisions. Kind of like choosing Derek Jeter as the pinch hitter for your baseball team.
Jeter, you're in. We need a home run.
I'll give it a try. I've swung a bat once or twice.
That's out of here. Yep, even easier than that. With no fees or minimums and no overdraft fees, is it even a decision? That's banking reimagined. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com/bank for details. Capital One N.A. member FDIC.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 joins you in standing for voting rights. When We All Vote is a leading national nonpartisan initiative on a mission to change the culture around voting and to increase participation in each and every election by helping to close the race and age gap. Created by Michelle Obama, When We All Vote brings together individuals, institutions, brands, and organizations to register new voters across the country and advance civic education for the entire family and voters of every age to build an informed and engaged electorate for today and generations to come. When We All Vote empowers their supporters and volunteers to take action through voting, advocating for their rights, and holding their elected officials accountable. Please visit whenweallvote.org to stand up for your rights, voting rights. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey, Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Is this tree good for climbing? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
Some people won't give you the real talk on drugs, but it's time we know the facts. Fentanyl is killing people. It's a powerful opioid, often made illegally and commonly mixed with illicit drugs. It can even be pressed into counterfeit pills that resemble prescription medications. Just 2 milligrams, about the size of a few grains of sand, can potentially be lethal. This isn't an ad to scare you, but it is an ad to make you think twice. Get the facts. Go to realdealonfentanyl.com. This message is brought to you by the Ad Council.
Sounds different, huh? This is Tavis Smiley.
Indeed it is. I'm glad to have you tuned in. We are trying to find our guest in this segment, Dr. Robert Drummond, our resident physician. We've never had this issue before, trying to track down the good doctor, but we are looking to have a conversation with him about the severity of these heat extremes that are impacting people across the country in uniquely different ways. Over the past weekend, the National Weather Service reported that over 175 million people in the U.S. were under excessive heat warnings and advisories. Many areas experienced heat index readings, as you well know, soaring above 100 degrees Fahrenheit. I think we all know by now in Phoenix, they're now, 31 days? Today's either day 31 or day 32, where Phoenix is over 110 degrees unabated. 31 days and counting, where in Phoenix, Arizona, they are at 110 or worse. Today is 31. Thank you, Miles. So today is the 31st day that in Phoenix, Arizona, they've been at 110 or higher. That's unfathomable. I would not want to be living in Phoenix right about now. It's a beautiful place, but I wouldn't want to be there right now. That's what's happening in Phoenix. But again, over the weekend, 175 million fellow citizens were under excessive heat warnings and advisories. That's a whole lot of people, 175 million. Adding to the severity of that situation, though, is a concerning report published by health officials in New York City last week, which revealed that black folk are more susceptible to heat stress-related deaths as compared to anybody else in the country. It's an alarming reality, and yet, on the one hand, not something that should be surprising for us. We've talked many times on this program in the past with our friend Dr. Mustafa Santiago Ali about the ways in which African Americans find themselves in harm's way more than anybody else when it comes to extreme weather patterns, period. So it should come as no surprise on one hand that African Americans are being put upon in ways that other people are not. But this really is a matter of life and death. It is literally a matter of life and death. And to that end, what they found in this study in New York City is that black folk are dying more from this extreme heat than anybody else in the nation. As I've said so many times, and you know that old adage that when everybody else gets a cold, we get pneumonia. Put another way, if it ain't one thing, it's another. That African Americans tend to find themselves always on the wrong end of these data points. And I suspect that while this study comes out of New York City, something tells me that all across the country, if they were to do this sort of research, they'd find the same thing, that in places from California to the Carolinas, there are too many black people who are dying from exposure to this heat. We couldn't put our hands on Dr. Robert Drummond. Leave it to the first day of syndication to have a guest go MIA on you. When I get hold of Dr. Drummond, trust and believe, we're going to have words lovingly. But I'm always honored to be in conversation with Dr. Mustafa Santiago Ali, who we do have on the line now to talk about this recent report. And Dr. Ali, in case you didn't hear me, we're talking about this report that came out last week that I'm sure you're aware of. This is your lane. You're always on top of these things. It finds that black folk are more susceptible to heat, stress-related deaths than anybody else. Again, I was saying, referencing your name a moment ago before we got you on the line, that you and I have had many conversations over the years, and I have now come to learn that when it comes to weather patterns, when it comes to global warming, when it comes to climate change, black people are always going to be on the short end of the stick. But here again, more data that is irrefutable, incontrovertible, that we are dying from this heat more than anybody else, Dr. Ali. Good to have you on the program.
Well, it's always good to be with you, and thank you for covering these issues.
So how do you read this? Again, this is your lane. Again, you cannot be surprised by this new study that finds, again, that black people are dying from the heat more than anybody else. But what's your read of it?
Well, it builds upon a set of research that has verified, now for a couple of decades, that we die disproportionately from extreme heat. We know everything from heat exhaustion. And we know that in many instances, it is our communities who are doing some of the most deadly jobs when you're talking about extreme heat outdoors. We also know that, unfortunately, in our communities, we are least likely to have air conditioning. We're least likely to be able to afford to turn on that air conditioning. So it places those additional stressors on our bodies, especially in the nighttime when you're supposed to be able to allow your body to actually rejuvenate this heat that continues at these very high levels in the nighttime. Also, the dehydration that's associated with it. There's heat cramps that are associated with it. There's skin problems that's associated with it. And then, of course, the strokes that get people's attention because it actually takes our lives at a disproportionate rate. And, of course, Tavis, as you and I have talked about before, a lot of this goes back to the lack of infrastructure inside of our communities that then exacerbates these physical impacts. And we also have to bring into our conversation the mental health impacts that also come from extreme heat.
As you know, and this number will change in the not too distant future, we are headed toward that day inexorably. We are lunging toward that day when America, for the first time ever, will be comprised of more people of color than white folk. The good white folk will be outnumbered here in the not too distant future. But at the moment, there are still more poor whites in this country than there are poor blacks. And so, again, it's troubling for me to see that black people are being put upon in this way. But why is this happening to black folk, poor black people, and not poor white people?
Well, we have both to bring into the conversation the systemic racism that has always been in place. It is in the medical world. We know that. There are numerous studies that have shown that. So when people are being impacted, sometimes they don't receive the medical care. We also know that there are maps that show us where the clinics and hospitals that are closing down or are underfunded actually happen to be. So we've got that dynamic that's going on as well. So we have these double, triple, quadruple whammies that often happen inside of our communities. That's not to take away from our white brothers and sisters who are also economically challenged. But we know that there was intentionality in making sure that our communities did not have the infrastructures and the resources that are necessary to navigate the past and most definitely what's happening and what will happen in the future.
We're talking about this new study, new data out of New York City that finds that black people are more susceptible to heat stress-related deaths than anybody else in this country. And we're catching it right now, giving these excessive heat warnings and advisories all across the country. Our guest is Dr. Mustafa Santiago Ali. We'll continue with him when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
From Leimert Park with love, this is Tavis Smiley.
I'm Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I learned about atrial fibrillation the hard way. My symptoms would come and go: shortness of breath, fatigue. I kept going. Then I got so lightheaded, I couldn't. My doctor said I have AFib, so I'm about 5 times more likely to have a stroke. Other symptoms: irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain can come and go, but the risk of stroke stays. If you have symptoms, tell a doctor. Visit notimetowait.com.
Sponsored by Bristol-Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
Parents, we know we can't protect our kids from everything. Eventually, they're going to bump their heads or scrape their knees. But we can protect them from 6 types of cancer. HPV, or human papillomavirus, is a common preventable virus that can cause cancer later in life. The HPV vaccine prevents human papillomavirus and all the cancers it can cause. The American Cancer Society recommends getting your sons and daughters the HPV vaccine starting at age 9 to protect them later in life.
I am Jasmine Carson, LSU Women's Basketball National Champion. I had to up my game in my intimate grooming routine too. Venus for Pubic Hair and Skin is the only razor and regimen specifically designed to help protect your pubic skin from shave irritation. Visit GilletteVenus.com to learn more.
We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Contracts, and grants. This is Rambo, and I'm back August 5th. Contracts, and grants. I'll be at the Westin Hotel, LAX, Saturday, August 5th. Me and my guests are fast-paced in the contracts and grants. They only speak 6 minutes each. I have LA County, I have the city, I even have Everett, the CEO of Lindustry, coming to talk to you guys. And for the first time ever, I have Metro's Director of Certification coming. We average over 700 attendees, so you know the rules. Parking's about $15 with the event validation, event, coffee, snacks, all free, paid for by Rambo and Lindustry. And yes, you can bring guests. So save your seat, DeonRambo.com. Listen, contract ready's only 2 hours from 10 a.m. to 12. But if you get there around 9:30, I'll probably be doing some Q&As and things like that before the events I never get a chance to do. I honestly keep saying, I don't know what's more important for LA businesses right now than local contracts. So I'm back, Westin Hotel, LAX, Saturday, August 5th. August 5th. It takes 2 minutes to register. DeonRambo.com. Go register now. DeonRambo.com.
Let's get back to more of Tavis Smiley right now.
Our guest is Dr. Mustafa Santiago Ali as we talk about the reasons behind why black people are dying at a faster clip, at a greater clip due to this heat, these excessive heat warnings and advisories that we are subjected to than anybody else in the country. I was just looking at the ways in which extreme heat impacts our bodies. There are 3 ways that heat can kill, we are told. 1 is organ failure. 2, it just causes a heart attack. And 3, kidney failure. Organ failure, heart attack, and kidney failure. I raised those, Dr. Ali, because I have to believe that when it comes to black people dying more from this heat than anybody else, that some of that, given those 3 things, might very well have to do with pre-existing conditions. Yes, no?
Oh, most definitely. I was actually just in Houston, and we were having this conversation about the pre-existing conditions that exist inside of our community and the medications that we often take. So let me be clear: I'm not a medical doctor, but when we have these different conditions that are going on, we'll use high blood pressure as an example, and some of our medicine actually, we have diuretics, so that's pulling water out of your system. So therefore, it makes you more vulnerable to these extreme heat types of events. So we have to be mindful, one, of the medications that we're taking, two, the pre-existing medical conditions that we have, and then three, the infrastructure. If we live in these heat islands, then you get caught underneath, the heat domes are exacerbated, and then all these different types of things play out in a cumulative effect way.
Yep. So severe is this extreme heat that there are members of Congress, literally as we speak, one of them, Alex Padilla, the senator out of California, where this studio is housed, as we heard across the country on our first day of national syndication. Alex Padilla, though, senator from California, and he's introduced legislation, others have signed on, trying to advance a bill that aims to protect workers in extreme heat. Again, when you ask the question why black people are being subjected to more death, we're more susceptible to death. You got the pre-existing conditions. You have the fact, as Dr. Ali said earlier, we don't have access to air conditioning, et cetera, et cetera. But we are now in this era of global boiling, as somebody put it, an era of global boiling. And the White House, in fact, has announced provisions to protect workers from extreme heat. Well, I ask, who do you think these workers are who are most often exposed to this extreme heat, who need to be protected? Hence this legislation from Alex Padilla. When we come forward, Dr. Mustafa Santiago Ali, I'll get his take on the White House and members of Congress trying to advance legislation to protect everyday people, everyday workers from extreme heat, many of them who look just like you and me. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Say the quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580.
MC Light for AARP. Hip hop, the cultural phenomenon that took New York by storm in 1973, is celebrating 50 years of rocking mics and crowds. Whether you're a ride or die hip hop head or simply curious about its origins, check out the latest issue of AARP the magazine. It celebrates this incredible milestone with a featured story brimming with fun hip-hop facts and history. Head over to aarp.org/black community to learn more.
Community is more than where you live. It's the people in it who go above and beyond to help it thrive. During the 50th anniversary of hip-hop and the 75th anniversary of Black Radio, AARP recognizes the members, volunteers, people, and partners giving back to our communities. We believe when our efforts drive change for the greater good, we all thrive together. To learn more about how AARP supports efforts to keep our communities thriving, visit aarp.org/black community.
Extreme heat can make you very sick and can be deadly. For Californians 65 and over, it's important to have a plan. Ask your healthcare provider if your medications affect your ability to cool down. Know the signs of heat illness and stroke, as well as the location of your nearest cooling center or air-conditioned space. And if you have loved ones over 65, be sure to check in on them on hot days. Learn how to stay safer from extreme heat at heatreadyca.com. Brought to you by the state of California.
Hey, Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Is this tree good for climbing? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
Hey, I am D.L. Hughley, host of the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show, heard weekdays from 2 to 4 exclusively on KBLA Talk 1580. I promise to make you think a little, but laugh a whole lot more. So tune in to the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show 2 to 4 only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader. KBLA Talk 1580. Follow the leader.
If you're not following KBLA Talk 1580 on all of our socials, then you're missing out.
Believe it.
Download our app and find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on the web at KBLA 1580.
That's right.
Again, you can find all of our socials at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
By the way, if you miss any of our weekday shows in real time, you can always catch up by checking out the podcast of your favorite shows at your leisure. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Follow the leader.
Oh my God.
Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
He's rooting for everybody black. Everybody black. More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
It's not just the era of global warming. It is the era as someone put it, of global boiling. Global boiling is more like it. Our guest is Dr. Mustafa Santiago Ali, if I can say it. It's good to have friends. The Bible says that he that has friends must show himself friendly. And I got to be nice to Dr. Ali going forward, even nicer, because our guest was supposed to be our resident physician, Dr. Robert Drummond, who is an MD. And for some reason, we can't put our hands on him. And it would be that way on the first day of national syndication that one of your guests goes MIA on you. But as I said, it's good to have friends. And we dialed up Dr. Mustafa Santiago Ali, a dear friend of mine in this program. And he is the foremost environmental expert in this country when it comes to our people, certainly. He's our go-to. And so we're glad to get him on the phone to talk about this data that came out last week that shows that black people are more susceptible to dying from these high heat indexes than anybody else. And we're trying to wrestle with that in the few minutes that we have left here. I was saying, Dr. Ali, before that break, that the White House has announced provisions to protect workers from extreme heat. Senators on Capitol Hill are advancing a bill aimed at protecting workers from extreme heat. It occurs to me that if we're in the era of global boiling, this is going to get worse. It's going to continue. And workers, particularly those who are outside or working in certain facilities, are going to be subjected to this. And employers oftentimes don't care, right? They want the product produced. They want the work done. And they seem not to be as in tune to the conditions and circumstances in which workers work. That's an old story in this country. But what say you about the ways in which in the coming months and years we're going to have to rethink workers who are exposed to extreme heat, many of whom happen to look like you and me with melanin in their skin?
Yeah, well, we should just be clear with everyone that, unfortunately, our folks die at twice the rate of our white brothers and sisters from extreme heat. Extreme heat is the number one, climate killer, if you will. So that's two of the reasons why we have to pay particular attention to what's going on. The president making sure that the Labor Department is stepping up on their enforcement actions in relationship to employers is incredibly important to make sure that they know that they have some responsibility in this space. And then, also making sure that making those additional investments in cooling centers and making sure that we're protecting the various water opportunities that are out there and making sure folks have that. Tavis, I've been out with farm workers, and let's be clear that, yes, our Latinx brothers and sisters work in that space, but also a number of Caribbean folks work in that space, and you'll often find that folks don't have access to water. And so when you're working in these 100-plus degree temperatures, you've got to make sure that folks have the various things that they need to be able to navigate this, and we're just going to have to also figure out ways to be able to do some of these jobs in different ways, because the human body just can't deal with these temperatures.
You said earlier you're not a doctor, not an MD, and I'm not a lawyer, a JD, but it is fascinating for me to consider the ways in which in the years to come employers are going to be held more liable potentially as workers pass out and die, sadly, because of extreme heat. It's got to open up a whole another line of conversation on talk radio and beyond about the responsibility of employers. Let me ask you in the 45 seconds I have right quick here, whether or not, to your mind, it will always be the case that black people will be the disproportionate victims of these environmental hazards, or whether or not there's a way to make a U-turn.
Well, I think we make the U-turn by making sure, one, that we are highlighting these impacts that are going on, bringing forward best practices of employers and others who are, protecting their workers. And then the third part, of course, is that if we utilize our vote to make sure that we have the right people in office, we can get the resources and sets of actions happening at a much more quicker rate.
Dr. Mustafa Santiago Ali, one of the leading experts in this country when it comes to environmental issues, particularly as it relates to our community, environmental racism and beyond. Dr. Ali, thanks for coming on. Good to have you. Thanks for picking up that phone when we rang you, and we'll do it again somewhere down the road under less extreme circumstances, sir. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you too.
Good to have you on the program. And there you have it, 3 hours of the first day of national syndication for Tavis Smiley. Once again, we thank WBOK 1230 a.m. in New Orleans being the first station to broadcast this across the country. More stations coming online this week, more after Labor Day, but that is the first day of syndication for Tavis Smiley. Thanks for tuning in. Back here tomorrow, do it all over again, Lord willing. Until then, keep the faith.